Okay, as usual, I'm getting a very late start. It's almost 8:30 here, but again, I'm by myself and it's just us. I'm going to be making some salsa and I'm going to share with you my method, how I do it. I don't really have a recipe per se. I kind of just combine things. Um, right now, I'm waiting for my water to boil to blanch my tomatoes, so I went ahead and took the stems and rinsed all my peppers. And I picked these peppers from my garden. I've got pepperoncinis and several jalapenos. And I'm just gonna, and I got a bell pepper, and I'm just gonna throw all this into my handy little chopper and chop these up. And then I'm going to go ahead and get my tomatoes blanched. The water's not boiling yet, that's crucial. So I'll just, if you've watched my other video, you know that I use this little chopper. I'm going to call this Terry's Tiny Kitchen because I have a very small kitchen that I'm kind of having to get used to again. So I just throw these in here. I'm going to chop them fairly fine. And I'll use this to do the tomatoes and everything. So a little bit of noise here. I didn't take the seeds out of anything. So I do take the seeds out of the tomatoes, but so this should be nicely chopped, if you can see that. So I'm going to go ahead and finish chopping these up, and I'll be getting the tomatoes, and I'll be back with you shortly. Okay, you know what they say about a watch pot. My water isn't boiling yet for my tomatoes, so I'm going to go ahead and take care of my onions. I've chopped these a little bit. I'm going to throw them in there. I'm going to use about 1.5 pretty nice size onion. You can always add more. Also, those peppers, if you do not like spicy, do not put any jalapenos in there. Of course, salsa is sort of spicy anyway. So I'm going to do that. We'll get those tomatoes done. I wanted to mention I'm doing this now. I have a regular wireless microphone that my wonderful granddaughter got me. She looked at my other video and she suggested very nicely. She said, "Grandma, what kind of a connection do I have? USB-C?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, I'm going to get you a microphone, and that way you won't have that background noise, and it'll be more professional." So thank you, wonderful granddaughter, for getting this for me, and I'm hoping it will be more professional and more enjoyable for people that choose to watch my videos. I'll have my applesauce one ready to put on YouTube pretty soon. Apple butter, I'm sorry. Anyway, I'll go ahead and chop these onions. Hopefully that water will get boiling, and then we'll get to peeling those tomatoes. Okay, I'm getting the tomatoes out of this boiling water that finally boiled. Transferring them over here to this colander. Be very, very careful, boiling water and all that. You don't want the tomatoes to cook. You just want them in the water for, maybe 2 minutes, depending on the size of the tomatoes. These are mostly Romas, and they're not huge tomatoes. So I washed them and took the stems off. Waited forever for the water to boil, and I just threw them all in there. This is quite a few to put into one pot, but it works. I try to keep things as simple as can be. And like I said, I really don't have a recipe. I'm just by guess and by golly, as my grandma used to say. You know, you just have to kind of go by your own taste. Anyway, I'll get these out of here and then we'll start peeling them. Okay, here's the tomatoes fresh out of the boiling water. I've got ice water, and I make these ice packs. It kind of saves on ice cube a little bit, but you want to get those into that ice water so you don't want them to keep cooking and get all mushy. Although you're going to chop them all up and they'll be mushy anyway. So I wound up with about, a cup and a half of chopped up peppers of various sorts, and probably close to an equal amount of chopped up onion. I may add a little more onion depending on what the mix tastes like. So now comes the fun part. I love doing things like this. Like I said, it's therapeutic. The tomatoes are still pretty warm. They're in that ice water. I have this is actually for strawberries, but I find it works really well. You just take this little core like that, and then you see how the skins just slip right off of there nicely. Very much like the peaches that we did. There's that skin. And then I take, this is a Roma tomato, I take it and I squeeze it and it gets most of the seeds out of it. The Romas are a very dense, meaty tomato. They're perfect for salsa, although I've got other tomatoes in here too. So you just do these tomatoes one at a time. Some people would think it's too tedious. Anyway, just squeeze the seeds out. I just go along, like I say, I do things kind of old-fashioned, and I just enjoy the whole process. Anything to do with food. Squeeze those seeds out. I'm not using that core like I showed you because I'm onto a little different method here. Squeeze those seeds. Anyway, I'll do this, get all these tomatoes ready. I've got a couple of batches of them to do, so hopefully I'll wind up with a goodly amount of salsa. I never know how much a batch is going to wind up being. So I'll go ahead with this and be back and go through more of this process with you. I know you don't want to just sit here and watch me peel blanched tomatoes. Anyway, this is how I do this part. So I'll continue and be back. Okay, I think we're ready to finish our assembly of this wonderful salsa. A couple things I wanted to show you, just little tiny things that I do. I chop up a goodly amount of garlic. That's almost a whole head of garlic in there. And then I take some of this juice. I should have got a spoon. Anyway, I put some of that in there with it so I can chop the garlic up very finely. I'll just throw that in there. As well as limes. I'm putting like about juice of 3 fresh limes in this. It just gives it wonderful flavor. And we all enjoy the garlic and the salsa. I made a batch here a couple months ago, and when we were eating it, it was like my son and my husband both said, there's something, what's wrong, whatever. It tasted good, but there was something. And I do believe I forgot the garlic. So I just chopped up a nice clove of garlic finely and stuck it in the jar that we had opened. And that fixed it. It had that garlic in it. This is cilantro, nice fresh cilantro from the little corner market down here. They actually keep it in a tub of water. The stalks are in the water, so it just stays just wonderful, beautiful. Not like in like Walmart when they're just in a bin or anyway. So I'm going to chop the garlic and the cilantro finely. And then I'll chop some more cilantro more coarsely to throw in. And this will be real fine, so the garlic is all nice and mulched up. So little noise here. Oh, I wish we had smell-o-vision. You can just smell that garlic and cilantro and lime. It's just wonderful. I think that should do it. It should be just like a slurry. I forgot the garlic and we noticed it right away. Now, if you don't care for garlic, don't put garlic in it. That's the beauty of doing your own stuff. I also, on the top here, you can see the green. I decided to change it up and make the batch a little bigger with some green tomatoes and just mince them up nice in my trusty little machine. If you're familiar with like tomatillos, to me, they remind me of just a little tiny green tomato. I know they're not, and I really don't know the biology of a tomatillo, but the green tomatoes give it that bite that the tomatillo does. It's that little tart flavor that the green tomato and the tomatillo, to me, is very similar. So I chopped up about 6 green tomatoes and added it to the ripe tomatoes and to the rest of my concoction. And I'm going to chop up some more cilantro. The joke is around here, and we keep saying it because it is kind of funny. Years and years ago, we were at a restaurant or something, and they had fresh cilantro on the side. And I didn't want it. I don't know why, but I said, I don't think I care for cilantro. I said that to my son. I don't think I care for cilantro. I love cilantro. The error of my ways, or the error of what I thought. So every once in a while, they'll say, I thought you didn't care for cilantro, because I I'll probably use most of this. So that's probably about close to a cup of altogether, mulched up very finely and then chopped coarsely like this. I'd say that's probably 3/4 to a cup maybe. Want to get the rest of these limes in here. Boy, my hands harder and harder to squeeze these limes anymore. They're so I'm going to finish this up and we'll get this over to the stove, finish up with their seasonings, and we'll be ready to put them in the jars. Okay, our wonderful salsa has been simmering along here for probably 8 to 10 minutes. It's pretty juicy, so I was cooking it down a little bit. I added about 1/4 cup of salt. This is probably about a gallon of salsa. Of course, that's to taste. When you make it yourself, you can do it. You don't even have to put salt in it if you want. I added about 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, and I added about 2 tablespoons of sugar. Now, you can't really taste the sugar. The sugar just adds another layer to the flavor profile of this. It's undetectable, but it adds something extra to the flavor. It doesn't make it sweet by any means. So I'm going to get my jars. They're nice and hot in the microwave. And we'll start filling these jars. I'll do a couple at a time. They're really, really, really hot. Need to get my ladle. Forgot that. And here's the funnel. Need to get a better angle on this. Okay. Start filling these jars. Just do a couple at a time. This wound up being fairly spicy. I put probably 20 or so peppercini peppers in here and probably about 8 jalapenos. And I never know how hot they are until they're done and in the salsa. That jar is a little too full. We're going to get a nice batch of salsa out of this. Lots of red tomatoes, green tomatoes, onion, bell pepper, jalapeno pepper. Just a really nice mixture of things that are kind of left in the garden. I'm going to take a little bit out of this. You only want to fill it to about the top edge there of where the neck comes right there. Then you always want to make sure you wipe the top off, the rim, around the edge. Then here's my handy dandy little lifter, little magnet. Very, very hot. Get a couple of these out of here. Okay, I'll go ahead and finish this up and see what we wind up with. They've got to go in my trusty, my stock pot I've told you about that does quadruple duty for me for everything. I just bought an insert jar lifter rack that goes in here, so I can use it for lots of things. So I'll finish filling this and see what we wind up with. Well, there's 8 pints in my water bath. It's got to process for 5 minutes after it comes to a boil, which it's very close. But while no one was watching, I scooped some of this lovely salsa and I stuck it in the freezer so it'd get cold just in a few minutes. And of course I have to sample it. So let me see. That is so good. Has a nice little kick to it. I think my son will be real happy. He likes the spicy stuff. I really wish you could taste this. It is so good. Every time I make a batch, excuse me for talking while I'm eating, it always is like, this is the best batch, Mom. This might be the best batch. Anyway, I hope you give it a try. It turned out really well. Has a nice kick to it. Perfect salsa. Thanks for watching. And I'm supposed to say like and subscribe. Anyway, have a good evening. Enjoy.